All right, so today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to become detectives and dive into a 2,000-year-old logical puzzle that honestly feels way more like a cold case file than some ancient legal debate. And it all kicks off with this question. How does an ancient text end up solving a logical paradox about laundry of all things? Now, our case file is the Talmud, and yeah, our mystery is all about washing clothes. But trust me, it is anything but simple. So to understand what's going on, you gotta know the scene. In the ancient temple in Jerusalem, priests would perform these rituals called sin offerings. And, during the process, it wasn't uncommon for a little bit of sacrificial blood to splash onto their garments. And of course, where there's a stain, there's gotta be a rule for how to clean it. Now, our first clue seems pretty straightforward. The Mishnah, which is a foundational text of Jewish law, says that if a garment gets some blood on it, you don't have to wash the whole thing. Just wash the spot. Simple, right? Well, not so fast. This is exactly where our mystery really begins. Because the plot thickens a lot when we bring in one specific material, leather. All of a sudden, that simple, clear rule runs head first into a totally different law, and that creates a massive problem. And here it is, the heart of our paradox. Check this out. On one hand, the rule for sin offerings is crystal clear. A leather garment with that sacrificial blood has to be laundered. But on the other hand, the rules for the Sabbath say that just wetting a leather item is not considered the act of laundering, which is forbidden. So, which one is it? Is washing leather laundering, or isn't it? It just can't be both. Okay, so the first person to take a crack at solving this puzzle is a sage named Abaye, and he comes up with what seems like a pretty simple, logical explanation. Abaye's theory is that this isn't really a paradox at all. It's just a disagreement. He says, look, there are two different schools of thought here. You've got the rabbis, who say you don't really wash leather, you just kind of scrape it clean. And then you have this other group, called others, who say, no, you definitely launder it. So Abaye figures the Shabbat rule is just following the first group, and the sin offering rule is following the second group. Problem solved, right? Case closed? Well, not quite. Because this is where our lead detective, a truly brilliant sage named Rava, enters the picture. And he is just not buying Abaye's easy answer. He's got a hunch there's something much deeper going on here. Rava just blows up the whole foundation of Abaye's theory. He basically asks, hold on a second, are we serious? Is there really anyone who actually thinks that leather can't be washed? To him, the whole idea that a group of scholars would believe something so obviously wrong, it just doesn't sit right. He needs proof. And then Rava pulls out his smoking gun, a direct quote from the Torah itself, the highest possible authority. And the verse right there explicitly talks about washing any article of leather. I mean, for Rava, this is case closed. Of course you can launder leather. And just like that, Abaye's whole theory about it being a simple disagreement completely falls apart. Okay, so Abaye's idea is off the table. Now, Rava has to come up with his own theory. He suggests something a bit more sophisticated. He says, okay, maybe everyone agrees you can wash leather, but maybe the argument isn't about if you can wash it, but about what kind of leather we're talking about. So here's his first hypothesis. The disagreement isn't about all leather. It's only about hard leather. Maybe that's what the rabbis meant you should just scrape. But when it comes to soft, pliable leather, Rava argues, come on, everyone has to agree that you can launder that. It's a really smart theory, and it seems to fix the whole problem. At first. But then, another piece of evidence turns up, and it pokes a huge hole in Rava's own theory. See, there's another law that specifically talks about soft leather cushions, and that law explicitly says it's okay to get them wet on Shabbat. But wait, according to Rava's own logic, that should be forbidden laundering, but it's not. His theory doesn't fit all the facts. And this is what's so amazing. Look at what Rava does next. It's just a moment of pure intellectual honesty. Instead of trying to twist the facts to fit his theory, he just publicly says, that which I said is not correct. He gives up on his own idea because it doesn't stand up to the evidence. I mean, that's the mark of someone who's really searching for the truth. So after striking out with two theories, Rava goes back to the drawing board one last time. And this is where he has that big aha moment that just cracks the entire case wide open. Here it is, the big breakthrough. Rava realizes the entire paradox, this whole mess, it all hinges on the definition of a single word, laundering or kibbus. He says, wait a minute, maybe laundering isn't just about getting something wet. He argues that real laundering has to include the physical act of rubbing. And once you have that new, more precise definition, watch this. Everything just clicks perfectly into place. So on shop bed, yeah, you can wet a leather cushion because you're not rubbing it. It's not laundering. But for the sin offering, to get that blood stain out, you have to wash it with rubbing. Suddenly, the two rules don't contradict each other at all. They're just describing two different things. The paradox? It's gone. So why does any of this matter to us today? I mean, this whole debate about ancient laundry, who cares? Well, it matters because the process is absolutely timeless. This story is a masterclass in how to solve hard problems. It shows us that logic depends on having really precise definitions. It teaches us that critical thinking means you have to test your theories, and more importantly, have the guts and the intellectual honesty to throw them out when they're wrong. It's just this incredible model for how to search for the truth. And that kind of leaves us with one last thing to think about. This whole 2,000-year-old investigation came down to defining a single word. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What modern rules or laws or even big political debates that we have today hinge entirely on how we decide to define one single critical word? Something to think about.